Good news and bad news. The battle for driver pay in the city of Minneapolis, the state of Minnesota, has come to a conclusion. But is it a win for the drivers? What up, folks? Once again, it is indeed your boy Tim with another ride sharing video. Had several viewers of the channel ask me how did I view the outcome of the case in Minnesota with drivers. I don't believe it's 100% good news. And, a lot of times negotiations come down that way. It's a give and take. But I want to go into detail about what happened. Now, many of you are already aware that drivers did fight the good fight in Minneapolis, and they had actually convinced city council to vote in their, to rule in their favor in regards to giving them a significant pay increase. They were going to bump drivers up to $1.40 per mile minimum, 51 cents per minute wait time. Drivers are going to get 80% of fees that Uber might charge the customers. And last but not least, every trip, minimum $5. So you can never be summoned to go pick somebody up and not make less than $5. Uber and Lyft came in and said that's way too fucking high. They pushed back. Instead of paying drivers $1.40 a mile, they only wanted to pay drivers 89 cents. And they wanted to drop the per minute wait time from 51 cents a minute down to, I think, 49 cents or even in the 30s. The 80% of the fees, they weren't trying to offer a dime on that. They didn't want to give any percentage at all. And last but not least, the $5 minimum trip, they weren't offering any minimum trip fare at all as well. And I'll go over what we did get, and you'll see why it's not a total victory for drivers. Here's what the outcome has been. Here's what they finally agreed on what's actually going to officially be law. Starting January 1st, 2025, the bill will entitle drivers to at least $1.28 per mile to 31 cents per minute, which is within the general range of rates needed to ensure Twin Cities drivers earn the Minneapolis minimum wage of $15.57 per hour, after accounting for their vehicle expenses and payroll taxes, according to a state study of driver compensation. So what they're basically saying is, if we give drivers $1.28 a mile and 31 cents per minute wait time, this will push them up to at least earning minimum wage, which shows how low drivers are getting paid in that area. Remember, I just told you, Uber pushing back wanted to bump drivers up to 89 cents per mile. So if the study concluded they need to make at least $1.28 per mile to be at minimum wage, that shows you how low Uber and Lyft were paying drivers. And remember, they were going to bump them up to 89 cents. Currently, they are making less than 89 cents a mile, because that would have been a raise according to Uber and Lyft. So these drivers in this area are making really, really low earnings. And by the way, folks, most markets in the United States, I'd submit to you, most markets in the United States pay drivers currently less than 89 cents a mile. That is more than most American Uber and Lyft drivers are making. There's a handful of markets like Seattle, New York, I believe maybe Boston. There's a handful of markets that are making more than 89 cents a mile, but over 99% of American markets are paying less than 89 cents a mile. So anybody who wonders what Uber and Lyft drivers make, we'll go with two words: ain't shit. They're not making much at all. And this study shows that. They're admitting this gets them up to minimum wage. Damn. Now, also, the reason I said it's not necessarily a victory, two parts of the original agreement that drivers won are no longer there. 80% of fees and a minimum $5 trip. Those things are gone now. Those things are no longer on the table. We know as drivers, there are plenty of trips where you can drive wherever you need to drive to pick someone up, take them to their destination, and you make less than $5. That happens to every driver in the business. And the 80% of fees disappearing off the table leaves Uber and Lyft the ability to charge passengers extra money to make up anything they're losing in this agreement and not share a damn penny of that with the drivers, because there is no requirement to share any fee you charge the passenger. You could charge them a surcharge for dealing with rush hour. You could charge them a surcharge for being out in the wee hours of the morning, concert pickups. I mean, you could make up any damn thing to charge passengers a little bit extra to make up anything that's lost here, and the driver will not be none the wiser because they don't share shit in terms of information with the driver. We don't know what the passengers are paying. This is to passengers who may be watching the video. Another thing I wanted to point out real quick, the other reason that Uber and Lyft came to the bargaining table, Minneapolis was starting to let in other fairly reputable rideshare companies, and those companies are there now. So there is some laws for the rideshare companies. They didn't win entirely. They got what the drivers were going to receive originally from $1.40. They got that knocked down to $1.28. They got the per minute wait time knocked down a whopping 20 cents per minute, from 51 cents per minute to only 31 cents. So Uber and Lyft did win something. But having other competing rideshare companies enter the market is not good for Uber or Lyft at all. Fact is, it is real fucking easy to steal a Uber or Lyft driver because the companies treat their drivers like shit. It's not hard to pay an Uber or Lyft driver more than they're making riding for Uber and Lyft. They've treated the driver so poorly, it ain't hard to steal one. Now, we'll talk to you about these two companies. First, Rides. And both of these companies operate on what's called a subscription service. In other words, if you want to drive for our company, you pay, let's say, $300 a week. That's what you pay us. Every damn penny you make is yours to keep. You just pay us a weekly subscription. So if you're driving 40 hours a week, you're going to make a lot more than $300 if you're driving 40 hours. So everything similar to a barbershop or a nail salon or something like that, where the beautician comes in and they pay the landlord a certain amount to operate a booth in that shop, and everything they make doing hair, they get to keep. Much more fair than what Uber and Lyft is doing, because we don't really know what the formula, what the metrics are that Uber and Lyft are doing. All we know is you take somebody from this point to that point. At the end of the trip, we'll give you this. How much we charge, how we came up with this number, you don't need to know any of that shit. So it's certainly more favorable to the driver to have a subscription-based service. But listen to what the CEO of Ride said. We're not afraid of the minimum wage that's being mandated here, talking about in Minneapolis. In fact, we embrace it. I think it's a good thing for drivers to get a fair pay, and we're 100% behind it, Ride CEO Steve Wright said. Now, that's refreshing, because Uber and Lyft don't talk about how great they are, how much they're interested in paying drivers fairly. Usually what you hear from Risher of Lyft or Derek Khosrowshahi, the CEO of Uber, it's usually lies. Like, drivers are making a killing. I think Derek Khosrowshahi said Uber and Lyft drivers are making, $39 per utilized hour, something ridiculous, and all the drivers are like, that's bullshit. So it's really refreshing to hear somebody come in and speak positive. Now, in addition to Rides, and by the way, Rides is already operating in over 20 markets, so they are experienced in rideshare. That's a good thing, which is why the city of Minneapolis looks like they voted to let them participate in that market. And my guess is if they grow, they would really be competitive to Uber and Lyft, because like I said, Uber and Lyft treats their drivers so damn shitty. Also, Empower is another company. Empower sounds like a smaller rideshare company because they don't seem to have all of the markets that Rides is currently operating in, but they do claim they're delivering 10,000 plus rides per day in the nation's capital, Washington, D.C. So even though they may be a smaller entity, they are experienced in rideshare. And here's their statement. With Empire, Drivers set their own rates. They're able to charge riders a bit less than what Uber and Lyft typically charge and still make more money. So riders are also saving about 10 to 20%. Sears, that's Josh Sears of the Empire CEO. That's also a good one. Now, in this case, you as a driver get to set your own rates. There is like I said, because it's a subscription service, some money does go to Empower, but you're paying that per week, per day, per hour, whatever the subscription is, and you keep all of the money. If you're allowed to set your own rate, it's very similar to doing cash rides. Because you can set your own rate and you're cutting out Uber and Lyft, you can give trips way cheaper. In this case, you hear them saying you can save the riders 10 to 20%. Because Uber and Lyft take 40, 50, 60, 70% of the fare or more on a lot of trips. If you get rid of them taking, let's say, if 50% of the trip goes to Uber or Lyft, and you get them out of the picture, you can cut the passenger's fee by 10%, increase yours by 15%, and still pay Empower and make it a win-win. The fact is that with Uber and Lyft taking so much of the damn rate or the fares, there's a lot of room to make this work and make everybody else happy. Because at the end of the day, currently, Uber and Lyft is getting the lion's share of the pie. Most of the money that passengers pay is going to Uber and Lyft. Get them out of the picture, and there's enough room to make every damn body happy. So I like this. I like the end result. I wish drivers could have made a little bit more, closer to that $1.40. But even with $1.28 per mile, compared to what they're making now, my guess is drivers are going to be much happier. 31 cents a minute wait time ain't really shit, and I'm going to stick to my original statement. Don't wait for people. Don't let somebody go shopping in Walmart while you're sitting out there running the heat or air conditioning in the summer, and that's running on your car. Don't wait for people. That's just simple as that. If the wait time charge is so damn low, just don't even get involved in that. Stay with that $1.28 per mile you earn and don't fucking wait for people. But competition in this business is good. Competition is good. The more companies come into business, they're going to want drivers, and the only way to get us is to treat us fairly. Second benefit that is huge for drivers as well. They stood their ground, called Uber and Lyft's bluff. Remember, they were threatening to leave Minneapolis entirely if they had to cave into this new rate. They didn't fucking leave. They saw these other companies coming in. They were going to fill the void entirely, and they realized they were losing the initiative. So Uber and Lyft caved on the bluff. They are now staying and paying drivers more. The reason this is so beneficial, because it expands beyond just Minneapolis. Drivers all over the country now know you can actually fight for better pay and win. Minneapolis, Seattle, these other cities have shown you the runway. They've shown you the lights to the runway. You can land. You can actually have success. So the reason why they're making $1.28 per mile in Minneapolis and some other cities are paying 62 cents a mile. Yeah, the cost of living in Minneapolis or Seattle is higher. It ain't that fucking much higher. It ain't no excuse for drivers to be operating, making $7-8 an hour in some of these towns. And that's absolutely happening. So it taught us, all drivers, that there is a good possibility of success if you stay in and fight the good fight. And not only did these drivers fight Uber and Lyft, they had to fight the fucking mayor and governor of that state because they were being bought out, apparently. I'm going to say apparently, but they absolutely were on the side of Uber and Lyft. The governor and the mayor both vetoing raises for drivers. Both of them did. They both vetoed drivers getting a raise. And the drivers still fought at the grassroots, lower level city council meetings and won. This is good shit, folks. Anyhow, let your boy know in the comments, what do you think about the outcome of this? Do you think they should have got more money? Do you think this is a win-win? Have you had any experience with companies like Rides, Empower, There's a host of others. State them in the comments and let your boy know. I'll see you in the next video. Feel free to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. Catch you later.